listening to the Three Seeds Podcast, a show about native plants in the Midwest. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Elizabeth, and we've been walking around parks and gardens together for years.
In each show, we share interesting and fascinating facts about native plants.
Why 3 seeds? Well, we believe it takes 3 seeds to germinate great ideas.
We're 2 of the 3 seeds, and the third may very well be a plant, a person, or a cultivar.
Oh, no.
Just kidding. This is episode 3 of 3 Seeds Natives, and we are so excited today to be joined by Marcella Haber-Bishop. She is let's just call it a plant wizard. We're actually here in her basement of wonder, surrounded by really every kind of possible plant you can imagine. Not all native plants, by the way. Elizabeth, how would you describe our surroundings?
Yeah, it's like we are in a jungle. There are at least thousands in here.
Yeah.
And
Hundreds,
do you know?
Hundreds.
Are you
Hundreds.
sure?
I'm over 300.
Okay.
After that, I stopped counting.
Okay. And there's also a panting dog, if you all
That's
hear
Oli.
some panting. Yeah. But the reason why we wanted to talk with Marcella today is because she has been doing something called winter sowing for several years.
Okay.
And this is kind of part of our What the Heck Is segment, where we demystify a term, different terms that really don't make a lot of sense, to somebody who doesn't know. Marcella, tell us about you a little bit.
Sure. As you said, my name is Marcella. I am a stay-at-home mom. I have 2 children and I'm watching. And then during my rest of my day, like during when they're school or even when they're home, I'm gardening or tending to plants. That's really my other job. Winter slows down a little bit, but not really. And that's where winter sowing comes in and blew me out of my mind when I started about 3 years ago.
Okay.
So I've been gardening for over 15 years. I do a lot of outside planting, so just perennials, peppers, a lot of the garden that you would do for edible eat and stuff. I've always done winter stuff indoors. And then
What do you mean by you've done winter
indoors?
stuff
So
indoors?
indoor, I use a lot of lights, grow lights, heating mats to germinate the process. And those are with plants that don't need what's called a winter stratification. I found out a couple years ago, as I was trying to grow some seeds that I really liked, they never germinated. The germination is the process to get the seed to actually grow. The seed needs to have the right environment, right conditions, for it to say it's ready to grow, and it shoots out the root and then it shoots out the plant. And then I researched a little bit more about the plants, and then I found out that they need like a cold stratification. So then I'm like, oh, okay, I got it. So then I looked up the process of that.
But also, what the heck is cold stratification?
Exactly, because that was new to me too. I'm like, I thought you just sort of plant the seeds, put them on their heat mallet, and they will grow just fine. No, native plants to native region areas where it's cold, they need the process of cold. Not necessarily freezing cold, but cold. So you can even, when I was researching that and how to do it, there's several ways to do it. You can do it in a refrigerator. I don't have room in the refrigerator for hundreds of plants that I was thinking of doing. So I do have a second refrigerator, but no, that's not going to happen. I have a family and it's full of food. So I was looking at the other processes, and the other one that really just hit me was the milk jugs or container winter stratification outdoors. And I'm like, outdoors? I have outdoor space in the winter. I can do this. And I studied up on how to do it. I even tested with a few different containers, different seeds. The process itself, I would say it was 80% successful, which blew me because I've been doing indoor. And indoor, it's like a crapshoot. I had a whole thing where if the seeds were too old, didn't work. If they got too wet, didn't work. So I had a better germination rate. This, for natives, was perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Elizabeth, what questions do
I
you
have so many questions. I'm completely new to this. So we're talking just about natives and with this milk jug process that you're doing. When do you start and how do you start it?
Okay. So some seeds require more time than others. And I found like the only best advice I can give anybody is to hop onto Prairie Moon website. You don't have to buy
Prairie Moon Nursery.
Yes, you don't have to buy their seeds, but they have a whole listing of how long their germination ratio is and how long they take. I've had such great success, 80% or higher. I mean, it's just amazing.
And why is it more successful?
It provides the cool temperature because it's outside in the winter. However, it's protected. Basically, you're giving this thing a little growing dome. So in the growing dome, you have moist soil that you've pre-done when you put the seeds in. And then that moisture combined with the sun that hits it inside creates a perfect little bubble of heat. And that heat keeps it warm, and that's what the seed needs, because now it's thinking, it's coming, spring is coming. So you're fooling the seed into thinking it's later than it is.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I didn't know about the heat part. I thought that it was just helping control the moisture more, but I didn't realize that it's also the heat.
It won't germinate in frozen conditions.
Right. We live in Chicago. We live in the Midwest. This is winter is real.
Yes.
So at the same time that it creates that heat, no way this milk jug is going to stand up to like minus 20, right? In January, February.
Well, it's going to withstand it, but nothing's going to grow. It's going to keep
It's
that
gonna
warm
slow it
inside. It's going to keep it warm inside. So it might be minus 20 outside, but inside it might be 30 degrees warmer, because if the sun's hitting that, you're creating a hot spot inside. So it's not freezing. It shouldn't be frozen. And then when the snow or rain goes inside, that will also keep the soil moist. And again, you're creating that bubble of moisture.
So these are like little mini greenhouses.
Exactly.
In a way. Are you putting the lids on?
No.
Or the lids off?
No, because
you need airflow.
You need to have.
You guys, oh my God, you should have seen the looks on their faces when I said that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, you need to take the cap off, and it makes sense, because if it snows or rain, you need that water. You also have to check on it so that it stays moist, because if it doesn't snow and it doesn't rain, you have to go out there and give it a little water to keep that moisture and that dome going.
Okay. I tried winter sowing for the first time last year, and there was this whole thing about the winter solstice.
Yes.
I was not ready, December 21st. But why that date? What do you think the significance
for
is?
farmers, it goes back to that. So once the winter solstice, that's what farmers have always used as their indicator to get going. This is your time. We got more light, more time to do things, and take advantage of that time. So being outside, if you're going to put this, you don't want to put it on dark where it's going to only get 6 hours of sun. You want to put it where it gets more sun. So more hours of light, more hours of sun, more hours of heat.
I really like that it's connected to basically the planet and the sun.
The solar system, everything.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Everything's drawing to this time. Magnetics. You can get into it. It gets into magnetic shields and all this thing. You could even power your garden by doing little copper rods if you want, and that's supposed to even bring in that extra power of nature.
So in nature, native perennials, when their seeds are dropping, they're just germinating later, because you're getting just a jump start with this.
Technically, and sometimes some seeds will take up to 2 years.
This is
So
true.
this process can actually speed up that 2-year process into 1. So it will,
Really?
Yes, that's why you can take most of these seeds and you can still germinate. They may take longer, and that's why you look at the Prairie Moon, because if they're the ones that take the longer, that's when you really want to start it at the winter solstice, because those are the ones that can take up to 2 years.
I am so excited right now. I did not know.
Because if you think in nature, when a seed drops, it's got all that husk and all that stuff around it, and that will take time for all of that to basically deteriorate on its own. This process kind of just makes it so much faster. It's like on a steroid.
I was just going to say that.
It really is.
I've never heard of that. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I'm just so excited to know this, because I definitely have some seed packets that are intimidating because it's like Trillium. Guess what? That might be 3 years away that you're actually going to see a first bloom or even have the thing. So I was like, well, I can't winter sow that. And I just threw them on
And
the
you
ground.
can help the
I mean, what I mean is I scattered the seed. I didn't throw it on the ground.
Mar, what did you say?
I said sometimes you can help that process before you spread it and try and crack some of that skin off. That can speed it up if you want to do it faster in that method.
So what if you cracked the seed and you winter sowed it? You're like negative years if you do that.
Yeah, you don't want to crack the seed.
Okay.
I mean,
Whoa.
you just want to
Whoa, yeah.
crack
I mean,
off the
scarify
shell.
or whatever they say.
Well, like for
Right?
example here. So this is root.
Ooh, smell. I can smell through my mask.
Yes. The Mexican culture uses this as for good spirits and health. So they will actually grind this and put this in their foods.
It's really adorable, the shape of it.
Yeah, and these had little yellow flowers because it's part of the herbal families that are native.
the
So
smell.
why are you showing this little
Because the
cute plant?
husks are so hard.
Okay.
So if you want to help the process, that's what I'm saying. If you crunch it, you get the seeds and you can plant those. Otherwise, they may take a little while for this to open up like
Can I-
that and then drop.
Can I feel one more?
Mm-hmm.
Is that you?
Yeah,
don't
go
mind?
ahead. It's really hard.
Okay. Yeah, I would describe this as kind of being like almost like it feels like I'm holding a bone.
Mm-hmm.
It's that hard, and now I have to apply a lot of pressure to crush it. But the smell that comes out, I'm having a hard time describing it. It's a mix of citrus mixed with basil. It's something really intense. I really like it. I mean, it's nice to be around something that's so pungent.
This is a good food source for the swallowtails. That's why I grow tons of it.
So tell us about the swallowtails.
So swallowtails are native butterflies to our region here.
So why are you so interested in the swallowtails?
So my dad used to be a biologist in Costa Rica, and his study was collecting butterflies for the Botanical Garden in Missouri. So the big collection and knowledge that we have of the Costa Rican and South American butterfly migrations and stuff, he helped with all that. So when I was little, I would go chasing after butterflies and collect them with him and help him. So I've always kind of loved that connection, and I've always loved butterflies. And then when I bought this house, I thought it'd be fun to be a gardener, right? So I started to buy parsley. Don't ask me, I don't cook anything, but I thought it'd be fancy to put parsley on a plate.
It is
as
fancy,
a
by
little
the way.
fancy thing, you know. So I wanted to get some parsley, and silly me, right?
I love that a garnish got you in.
It did. I was like, I want it to be fancy now that I own a house, right? Not that I cook, but I grew it, and then one day all of a sudden I went out and I'm like, this thing is loaded with caterpillars, and I was like floored. I'm like, I know what these things are. I grew in my house with my dad raising them, you know, like he literally did it. So it was like at that point I'm like, I'm growing parsley. I don't eat it, so they can eat all they want. And I started growing it, and this was, I would say at least 12 years ago. I've been in my house about 18 years.
Wow.
So for their caterpillar food, where they lay their eggs on, they look at things like rue. They look at things native would be the golden Alexander.
Mm-hmm.
The golden Alexander is a low-laying one with little yellow flowers. The leaves are really big, though.
Mm-hmm.
So it likes that.
Okay.
And when you feed them these rue, you're feeding them the rue seeds?
No.
No.
They
You're
eat
putting
the leaves. So the caterpillars eat the leaves.
Okay,
That's all
so
they
this stage that you're showing me, this hard.
This is fall. This is when they've dried out and the flower's already gone.
So you're keeping it to germinate the seeds?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I collect the seeds and I grow more and I give them
trying to-
away.
Where should I give them to you?
Sure.
Okay.
I have probably thousands of this. This is my last.
Elizabeth just saved her 5 seeds.
Yeah.
That's important. You
There
never
might
know.
be
You know what?
there
She's-
might be 8 there.
And she's not putting them in the trash right now.
No.
No,
saving 'em.
she put them on the counter.
Yeah. No, I will save them. I mean, I can't say no to seeds.
So let me ask you, getting back to the benefits of winter sowing and like going through the whole cycle, right? Which is really about seeds. This was my experience the first year. I didn't have anything. I didn't have any seeds. We bought live plants, and it was hella expensive.
Yes. It is.
It really
when you
was
buy a
surprising,
plant,
you know?
$5 and up
Right.
for a little seedling.
For a little plant.
So you circumnavigate this whole corporate system when you go to these these seed exchanges, right?
Yes.
Maybe, like me, you decide you're going to buy plants the first year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you spend a lot of money on that. Not all of them are successful. A few are successful. Then, if you're thoughtful, you realize, oh, I can collect seeds from these plants and grow more.
Mm-hmm.
However, the rate of germination is not necessarily so reliable, right?
Right.
So winter sowing comes in, you can grow like 50 plants in one milk jug.
Easy. I've grown probably 100. That you need 10 plants and say you grew 50, that's 10 plants that you'd not just spent $100 on.
Right.
Exactly. And they're strong plants, right?
Because they've already been exposed to the sun. If I take a seedling that I grew, that I germinated indoors, I have to slowly introduce it. I got to start by putting it in the shade, putting it back in. Putting it in the shade a little longer, bring it back in. Mm-hmm. And then once I get enough hours, now I can put it in the sun for only an hour or two, and bring it back into shade.
Is it really,
So,
it's about the sun, not about the cold?
Yes.
Oh.
So it's the sun that actually can kill the plant when they're baby seedlings. Basically, they're getting sunburned.
I feel like I have seen that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what we call it sun scald. Less chance with this because this has been introduced. It's been in the sun. And so this filters very little sun.
Right. It's a milk jug that's white but clear plastic.
Yep.
So
It still lets a lot of light in. And then when you start to open it up, because you'll slowly introduce it, you'll open it up maybe for a few hours and then come back. And then the next day you could really just start to leave it open completely. This technically will get cut off. And then you're just stuck with this and it just keeps growing.
Mm-hmm. So she's just showing a milk jug cut in half, basically.
Yep.
And she's opening and closing it like a puppet.
Yep.
Like a puppet's mouth.
We call this a hinge. First thing you would want to do is do drainage on all the corners.
On the
So
bottom.
on the
bottom.
Drilling little holes on the bottom.
You can cut, you can drill, you can even solder or burn them. It doesn't matter.
What do you do?
Cut.
And when you
Because I have an X-Acto blade when I do this.
And your soil in a milk jug, how much soil are you putting in?
So
into
in a
the
milk
soil?
jug, this dash line is my cut line. And you want at least about 3 inches of soil. And I don't like to go above the hinge, my hinge area, because I want to keep this nice handle. You just leave that little 1/2 inch to 1 inch by the handle as you go around, and you leave that uncut, and that becomes your hinge. And then I always do tags, like I label what I'm planting.
Oh, this is important.
Yes, this is very important. So this is my little tip. Always tag inside as well as outside,
And why is that?
because sun will fade your outside. Even with permanent marker, that does nothing. This is with paint marker. And a paint marker you can get at Michael's or anything like that.
Yeah, because basically you come up with some kind of system, right? To if you have 20 milk jugs, you're not going to remember which one is which.
So you've written it on a plant tag and put it in the
Yes.
inside of the handle,
I
tucked
will
it up
put
in
it
there.
on the handle. There's like a little pocket basically. Fits perfect.
Yeah.
You could put it just inside. It doesn't matter. I just like it here.
Did you invent that?
I think so, because I've never seen anybody do this, and I'm like, oh, this is like perfect. So label inside, label on the outside.
Okay.
And if you label it when you do it all together, you don't have to go back for a tag later. It will be right there.
Did you guys already talk about when is the time to fully expose it to the sun, where you cut it where you cut the hinge
Yeah,
off and now
completely.
it's just a half?
So end of March and May, depends on how cold it is outside, because you don't want to put it out if it's going to be snowing. We know May's in Chicago. We get snowstorms as well as flooding. So this does protect it from flooding too. So if too much water gets in it, it's not a big deal.
And this is probably intuitive, but this goes on the ground, or it can also go on cement?
It can go anywhere as long as when you put it outside, it's on 2 conditions. Full sun exposure and away from any coverage that would protect it from snow or rain. So it can't be up against the house where there might be a little part that hangs out and protects it. because then it's not getting the element it needs, which is the moisture.
So it's probably better to have it on the ground if possible, right?
I always have mine on the ground. And actually on the brick, it's not bad because if the sun hits the brick, it's just creating more heat.
So you're growing these little friends in these milk jugs.
Mm-hmm.
When do you know they're ready to move out of the milk jug?
So if you garden and you've done any kind of germination, you will get your first set of leaves are the baby leaves. The second ones will be the matured leaves. And then you're looking for that third. Once you hit that third set of leaves, you're safe with any kind of plant.
Okay.
With any kind of plant. But if you try and do it, you get so excited because you see leaves. Those are the baby leaves. Don't be fooled. They all look the same. But those will not be good. If you take it out then, you're going to kill it.
Okay.
So you're waiting for it to mature enough is after 3 seeds, 3 leaves.
3 leaves. I thought you said 3 seeds. That's
I
the
did.
name of this
Sorry.
podcast.
Whoa! 3 leaves.
Whoa.
3 leaves, yes.
3. That's the next podcast. 3
3
leaves
leaves.
natives.
I like that.
Does this make you want to do winter sowing, Elizabeth?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, I think you see something like this, you see it how doable it is, how
Yeah.
easy in some ways it is. For some people, you're going to probably be buying seeds, I guess.
Yeah.
And for some people, you might get into a club and have a seed exchange.
If you're lucky.
So yeah, there's many on Facebook. In most gardens, if you look for native garden groups, they have a lot of swaps.
I don't think we mentioned that you started a gardening group.
I have, yes. It's Windy City Gardening with the Midnight Gardener, which is me. Midnight Gardener because I'm a mom, which means I'm not getting down here till 9 or 10, and I'm here till midnight or 1.
That's dedication.
It's my one peaceful time. I
Yeah.
love it. No interruptions, no nothing except me, and sometimes my music.
So if there's one thing that you could tell everyone about winter sowing, what would it be?
How easy it would be. You plant it, and you basically forget about it. That's really, I mean, you do
Right.
want to check on it, but you really just forget about it until springtime when you open those up and you're ready to go.
Right.
Mar, you live in the city.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you planting all of this?
So I am a container gardener by most part, and I've learned to maximize every rail I have in my patio, my porch rails, my fence rails, and then it's city, so I don't have a huge backyard. You saw it, and I only have just this one wall with the south, so it's not much.
What is that? What in the city? What do we call that area where the trees are? It's like called the parkway.
Landing strip. Sometimes it's a parkway. Hell strip is also known as.
That's right.
Why is it called Hell Strip?
Because of all the salt and everything that goes on it.
And yeah, sometimes full sun.
Full
and
sun, it's just not a,
But it's-
not very well maintained usually.
Are you tempted to plant any of these natives there?
I have 2 gardens in my parkway, so I am 80% grass free on my parkway, and I have a huge corner lot, so I have a lot to work with. I wanted to dig up all my grass. I was done with it. It was, how many times have I tried to throw seed in there, trying to get the Charlie to go away, trying to get all these weeds to go away. So I was like, I need to feed my caterpillars. And that's really what set off my journey. So I dug it all up and I made, this is going to be a butterfly garden. It ends up being a pollinator garden because that's just what happens naturally.
Yeah.
And all my neighbors here are noticing it too. And they're like, look at all the bees, look at all the butterflies. And yeah, look at the hummingbirds. I've not had hummingbirds in my garden.
Oh.
And when I had a hummingbird literally right here as I'm looking for caterpillars, and it's just looking at the flower, and I literally felt like it was thanking me.
Oh,
So it was just, I felt so beautiful. It was
Yeah.
just like, wow.
yeah.
Is this
Inspiring.
catching on with your neighbors?
It is. I've had 3 neighbors. Hey, want to come look at my garden? I really want some help.
Thank you so much for sharing your wizardry of winter sowing and gardening and doing much more than just growing plants, but actually helping the whole ecosystem.
Thank you for allowing us into this secret garden in your basement.
Yeah, not many people see it. You guys are lucky.
Thank you.
We feel lucky.
Yeah.
And again, if you want to follow me, Windy City Gardener with the Midnight Gardener. You
This
can
is on
follow-
Facebook?
Yes, it's on Facebook. All sorts of tips.
Okay.
And really there to just sort of make the step of being a gardener less scary and more fun.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
again.
That was really cool. You know what? Being in Mars' basement filled to the brim with exotic plants, she's overwintering a lot of her houseplants there.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of that most exotic plant. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Exotic native plant?
Yeah.
Well, wait, are you saying that it's time for a plant reveal?
I am. Well, I'm going to reveal to you the orchid,
Oh,
the Illinois native orchid.
excellent.
Well, actually, there's multiple orchids. There's actually 17, if I get this right, 17 genera here in Chicago alone. And then 49 species are native to Illinois.
What?
Mm-hmm. And each genus is different. Flower shapes correspond to the insects that pollinate them.
No way.
Mm-hmm. But unlike tropical orchids that are arboreal, which means they're living in trees, the ones we have here are terrestrial, like of the earth. But not really extraterrestrial, although they are otherworldly in their beauty.
Very cool.
Today I'm going to talk about the eastern prairie fringed orchid, or Platanthera leucophea. And it's got delicate white flowers, and they seem to hover above surrounding plants. So people have described them as like seeing a group of little dancing ghosts. Do you want to see a picture?
Yeah.
Okay, let me show you. We said they're not extraterrestrial, but you tell me.
Oh, those are pretty freaky. They look like, I would describe it like a ghost with fringed sleeves and wearing kind of a nun's habit type of a hat, looking with a very worried face. That is a very cartoonish looking flower.
Well, you said none, and you know what? This is the holy grail of sorts because, surprise, surprise, this particular orchid is a rare plant whose numbers are dwindling, and they are usually in hidden habitats of wetlands and prairies. Why are they so rare? Apparently, they have an idiosyncratic life cycle.
Okay.
Seed germination is dependent on special relationships between roots and soil fungus that provides nutrients to seedlings, and some of these seedlings remain underground for years until conditions are just perfect.
Cool. So, do you know if this is the thing about these plants, they're already hidden. So, can we go find one?
Yes, I think you can find them. In fact, this particular native orchid is gaining a foothold in the Lake County Forest Preserves, and it's home to some of the largest remaining populations.
That's super cool. Thank you for revealing that.
Yeah.
I feel like I may have seen that at the Botanic Garden when they had a show on orchids.
Okay.
But that photo, we're going to put that as the cover photo for this episode, in
So
case y'all are
funny.
wondering what that is.
It's kind of got jazz hands now that I look at it.
It does have jazz hands.
Hey.
And jazz legs.
And jazzy legs, too. Yeah, and if you do get to see one, give it a sniff. It's reported to have a jasmine-like fragrance that intensifies as night approaches because it likes to attract night-flying hawk moths or sphinx moths. You want to see what that looks like?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I've seen those before.
Right?
Oh,
Striking.
very cool.
Yeah, if
Huh.
you were to buy like a sweater with this on you, it's a very graphic kind of look. Hey, what do you have for me?
Oh, I've got something pretty cool. Maybe actually almost like the opposite of what you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you showed me something beautiful that smells beautiful, and this is something, well, it does look beautiful, but it stinks.
It's stanky stank?
It stinks. My plant reveal is the skunk cabbage.
You always get the crazy ones.
I mean, I couldn't resist. So the Latin is Cyplocarpus fetidus. You know when something's fetid,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
It smells like
do
death.
I ever? Yeah.
That's what this plant is. It smells like death. What's really cool about it, though, is it is actually the very first to bloom in the spring. And it actually even appears as early as February. And it flowers from March through May. So it's in northern Illinois, it's the earliest blooming native wildflower. And this is the thing that I found just mind-blowing about this plant. It appears so early in February, even when there's snow. because it generates its own heat.
Oh my God. That's so great.
It melts off snow cover.
Oh, how does it do that?
It's a phenomenon called thermogenesis.
Uh-huh.
And the way that this plant is shaped is, so it's a cabbage. So it has what they call a claw-like pointed hood called a spathe surrounding a nub that is studded with blossoms. So inside the hood, it can be 60 to 95 degrees hotter than outside. That is a huge temperature difference, right?
Wow, that's some really intelligent structure going on there.
Yeah. So this hood has like a curved design, almost like, if you had your palm in a cupped position. Mm-hmm. And it insulates the flower and it makes warm air circulate around the flower.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah. So because of the heat, it also creates this stank, which is a cross between what I read was skunk and rotting meat.
That's not something you're going to want to buy in a bottle.
Me? I don't know. It depends what you like, but
depends on who you're trying to attract.
Yeah. If you'd like to attract flesh flies, carrion flies, and gnats.
Not usually, but this one does.
Yeah. Also slugs like it, snails like it, and spiders hang out inside, and they feed on the insects that visit the flowers. Ah. Also, honeybees hang out in there because it's an early source of pollen.
Oh, that's cool.
And they completely coat their bodies in the pollen when they go inside. In its habitat, what it likes is any kind of area where seepage is happening. All this sounds so gross, right? Like
yeah.
The word seepage.
Yeah.
But basically what it means is it likes like wet earth soil that underneath there might be flowing water. Mm. So it likes muck, basically, shade. And okay, so it is native to here, but its habitat goes all the way from North Carolina all the way up to the Arctic Circle.
Wow, really?
Yeah. So it does need water more than warmth. That's kind of how it's set up. And that's why you can find it in this huge range. It's also rhizomatous, but it's not rhizomatous in like the traditional way. Like it kind of makes a mass web of roots. And then it's basically sends the shoots off, but every year the plant is pulled further underground by its root system.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, like it takes a really long time for them to poke up out of the soil.
Maybe because they were pulled down lower
from the roots. I think so. I don't know. It kind of sounds like it's like push-pull kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
And then finally, not surprisingly, it's toxic because it contains some kind of toxic crystals. The other thing that's super cool about it, it is considered perfect.
Okay, and what does that mean?
That means
that's a technical. Yeah,
it's a botanical term. Because I was like, a double take. What does that mean? It means that each flower contains a male stamen and a female pistil structure.
That's cool.
So I guess that means it can decide what it wants to be. Each flower decides. So here's a photo of it.
Oh wow! No,
it's
that is so cool.
Right?
It's sort of like if you took a kind of a Smurf hood, and then you wanted to debut it in Paris. So you make it a little more goth, and
it is kind of goth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has it's a kind of a dark purple color. You can't tell by my lame printer, and then the inside flower is it is like a nub or like
it's really spiky,
oval
I think.
Thing with spikes that are yellow.
It's a very, very cool object. If we were to objectify it.
Yeah. One's stanky and one's pretty.
You always find the craziest stuff. All right, everybody. That was the third edition of our plant reveal. I hope you enjoyed it, or it makes you want to look some of this up.
Yeah, we'll check you guys on the flip side. Bye.
Bye.